Well, I think we need to go back and re-examine the way we give people license, issue license to people.
There should be more police presence on the road, especially the main roads, because a lot of persons have actually exceeding the speed limits. And if there are more police to actually, keep them on the track and ensure that they slow them down using the speed gun and so on, I think it would reduce it a lot.
It's a matter of, being sober and being conscious, in terms of, driving with more courtesy and more careful consideration of others around you and your surroundings, There's no rush. Where are we going to? The next stoplight?
Well, I think that the government needs to implement some more strategies, not only the traffic police, but traffic cameras, so forth, like in the United States or in England. I think that it would intimidate drivers to drive more safely, and I think it would make a better benefit for the country and for us as pedestrians, because traffic don't only apply to drivers but also to pedestrians.
There's an increase, I think, in road rage these days to get people to understand more about how to use the road.
The question of the day: what else can be done to reduce the number of road fatalities? That's some of what we've been talking about with the medical epidemiologist in chronic diseases and injury prevention at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Tamiu Davidson, and Dr. Lucian Jones. He's Vice Chairman of the National Road Safety Council. Let's now look at some figures spanning or dating as far back as 2009, the first half of those years, 2009, 2010, and 2011. And I'm just going to show you here, 189 in 2009, up to June of that year, 150 last year, 152. We're not doing too badly. We have made a significant reduction, certainly over 2009, and a slight jump for this year. But as we heard from Dr. Jones a moment ago, the Homewood tragedy would have contributed significantly to that. Let's now look at the reasons, all right, or certainly a summary of some of the issues contributing to the deaths on the roads, as well as some projections. We know, for instance, that 152 persons have been killed in 122 crashes. That's more persons being killed than crashes. Also, that fatal crashes have decreased by 12%. This is interesting. Fatal crashes have increased by 12%. However, the fatalities have increased by 1% when compared with a similar period in 2010. And also, child fatalities are projected to increase by 35% this year when compared to the year 2010. Dr. Jones, explain those figures for me.
In terms of the fatal crashes, we go back to the same point, is that you have less vehicles involved in crashes, resulting in fatalities because of the multiple fatality phenomenon about which we spoke. One of the concerns we have is that there's an increase in pedestrian fatalities. This is a problem we have had over the years, an increase in the child pedestrian fatalities.
Okay, so this 35% is related to child pedestrians, not children in vehicles.
Right, I think primarily child pedestrians they're talking about. And it is a category of road users that we have had tremendous difficulty trying to reduce the numbers.
But what's happening there? Is it that people have lost the duty of care when you have children attempting to cross the streets? No one is anyone's brother's, a brother's keeper anymore to walk a child across the street. That doesn't appear to happen anymore. Children are on their own.
Right. Well, the basic problem is speeding. If the cars which are involved in the crashes, we have had a couple of pedestrian crashes and fatalities in recent times. Salt River in Trelawney.
Yes, in
Trelawney. A couple of them. And there was a voice clip, I can't say what station it was, on the station, featured a young girl complaining that you ought not to have people driving so fast on the road.
Yes.
It came across very dramatically because this girl is about 7 or 8, and it really touched people's heart. The fact is that if people were to slow down when they are driving, then less pedestrians would die. That's one issue. But the other issue is the question of how well are we as a society caring for our children, our pedestrians. A big problem in the country part is that pedestrians don't have anywhere to walk. the verges are, you know, the way people walk is almost in the road.
Yes, because they have to avoid the overgrowth.
Precisely,
sometimes.
yes.
And sometimes the roads are just built rather narrow.
Well, that's another issue
Right.
altogether.
Yes. Dr. Davidson, let me bring up this point with you. $2 billion, you say, is the charge on the health budget every year to deal with these accidents and the resulting, you know, where people are injured and killed at times. Where it concerns insurance and recouping the medical expense from the insurance companies that obviously would have undertaken the risk on the motor vehicle involved, has the health ministry moved to get back some of those funds from the insurance companies?
Well, in terms of the cost, remember that we have a no user fee policy in terms of accessing care within the health sector as it relates to whether we try and recoup those costs from these accidents. Typically, persons who access our care would have accessed it without having to pay for this particular care.
But isn't this
Right.
a place for the health ministry to look to say we can recoup some of this expense from the insurance company?
Well, that's
Shouldn't it? The health minister
well,
was on record to have said
yes,
that persons who have health insurance
yes.
cards should bring them in for
if they do have health insurance cards, sure, but
that's
for in terms of the population, most of our population does not have health insurance.
What's the general
So,
nature
right.
of injuries for persons who come in?
Well, they vary from minor cuts, bruises to, you know, head injuries, so to multiple injuries that
And the
people
most
may
costly
come.
among them?
Well, for those that require surgery, that would be very costly. It also takes up time where you would have to do other elective surgery. We have
Yes.
to cancel and postpone surgery.
Okay.
It also, you know, eats up our blood supply as well, where we have to use our blood supply to for those people who need surgery, who have been in these accidents, in these crashes.
Right, emergency surgery at that. Let's now look at some other figures. Dr. Jones, male fatalities have decreased by less than 1%, while female fatalities have increased by 9% when compared with a similar period in 2010. Also, Sundays accounted for 21% of the fatalities, accidents and fatalities, while Wednesdays accounted for 17% of the fatalities and fatal crashes. I find that interesting. Sundays, when there's less traffic on the roads?
Well, less traffic on the roads, but perhaps people have been drinking on a Saturday night and driving under the influence of alcohol. That's one possibility. We have no hard data to show this. But generally speaking, in many countries, crashes take place on a Friday night, sometimes on a Saturday and a Sunday. So it may be related to the use of alcohol. It may be related to the fact that people are just tired, you know, been working hard for part of the weekend or for the entire week. It may be related to, yes, the roads are empty and therefore you speed on a Sunday. So a number of factors come into play here. I'm not sure what would cause the Wednesday issue. We'd have to look at it more carefully. But the weekend type of scenario is something which is featured all over the world.
Okay. And male fatalities decreasing by a mere 1%, but female fatalities are up 9%. What explains that?
Yeah, I think that really has had to do with what happened at Homewood compared to last year and a couple of other crashes involving women.
Okay.
But for the most part, most of the people who are dying, certainly in terms of drivers and passengers, are males.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Anything to do
majority.
with more female drivers, or?
Not really, no, I don't think so. It's just that for the most of the people who are drivers on the roads are males.
Yes.
And passengers may more likely be the females who would be passengers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which one of your health facilities you'd say would command a great demand from time to time in dealing with these traffic fatalities or injuries?
Well, mainly the ones in urban areas like our Kingston Public Hospital, Cornwall Regional Hospital, and St. Anne's Bay, where we find the largest volume in terms of injuries related to road traffic crashes.
And have there been upgrades to enhance the capabilities of the trauma teams there?
Well, we have been really working to see how we can best address it, and
So
I
the
think
short
the
answer is
main,
no.
the main strategy that we really need, you know, if we're really going to address this problem, is going to be working through this multi-sectoral partnership that we have.
Dr. Jones, let me give you the final word.
I want to appeal to our vulnerable road users, primarily the pedestrians, the pedal cyclists, and the motorcyclists. There are far too many motorcyclists who are riding around with no helmet. And sometimes you see the driver with a helmet, and the young lady behind him has no helmet. Or sometimes you see a child in front of him and a child behind him, and neither of the two has a helmet, but the father is using his helmet. We have to begin to obey the rules of the road because it saves lives. Also, those who are driving the cars, we have to begin to use our seat belts more. It saves lives, especially the seat belts in the rear. It's a big controversy now, and it's a big argument about whether or not it does save lives, and we need to use it more.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davidson and Dr. Jones, for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Hope we can save 300 this year and keep road traffic fatalities below 300 for 2011. The Supreme Ventures Draw is next.